Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of English 101. I just want to give a quick video to kind of introduce our next essay assignment and get you started. So let's get rolling. So a few takeaways from essay 1. I first of all was really moved, inspired, encouraged by your stories. I had a lot of fun reading through your memoirs and getting to know you guys better as people and as writers. So, a few ideas I want you to keep in mind from this first essay is that the experiences that you have and the narratives around you have power. That stories and what you've lived through can be great inspiration for what you focus on in your classes. So, once you have the story in mind, though, you want to make sure that you have a thesis, that you have a point about it, because otherwise it remains just a story. It isn't being used persuasively like rhetoric requires. So in essay 2, we're still going to sort of be looking at a narrative, but this time it'll be someone else's story, and still developing a thesis, supporting it with examples, and having a main point to your writing. I think those are some kind of key takeaways. So assignments for this week, what you'll need to do is comment on 3 other classmates' blog posts from last week. I'm excited to get to read those. You do have a reading reflection this week, and then next week after spring break, we'll have another blog. So we kind of, now that we're into the course, we'll go back and forth between those two. And then you'll have the essay 2 outline due this weekend. So we'll get into a little bit of what essay 2 is about, but these are the assignments to keep in mind for week 4. All right, so essay 2. I call this assignment the analysis. It's probably one of my favorite assignments that I do in this course, so I'm hoping that you guys enjoy writing these as much as I do reading them. From the assignment sheet on the left, you'll see that we'll be writing a 3 to 4 page summary and critical response to a song or poem of your choice. This means that you'll be choosing an academically challenging piece of music or written word to summarize, analyze, and critique. Basically, I ask you guys in essay 2 to choose a song, a poem, a speech, or some kind of spoken word, something with a transcript, to summarize, analyze, and respond to. Many students, when I do this assignment, choose songs, which are great. We're actually going to look at a song in a little bit, kind of as an example. I've had students choose speeches before. I've had students choose poems. The really only kind of requirement is that it is a piece that has substance to it, that has something to analyze. It does not have to be a political song or a piece, but those do sometimes have a lot to analyze. So, anything that touches on social issues is usually good. When I think I've had students maybe have difficulty in analyzing love songs, those can sometimes be quite difficult. Not impossible, but just a little more difficult than something maybe with a little bit of controversy around it. So I'll post some examples later this week, but just be thinking about what piece do you want to analyze. While we do this assignment, though, I want you to remember these rhetorical appeals we discussed in week 1. Ethos, pathos, and logos. So what we're going to be doing when you analyze a piece is asking yourself, okay, which appeal is this author using and how is it effective? So just remember that ethos is about credibility. It's about trust between the writer and their audience. Essentially, why is this person worth listening to? Pathos is based on the Latin root for pity, and it's really getting your audience to feel something. Very, very common in songs, but not the only appeal used. And then logos is logic. This is getting your audience to think about something that you've said using facts and reason. So it's not always truth, which is what makes identifying logic and logos a little tough. It's not always statistics, but it's sort of that same kind of logical approach. So besides those rhetorical appeals, you want to think about those, yes, but you also want to consider what we call the rhetorical situation. So you'll see in this right picture that they use the example of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. And when you think about analyzing a text, you want to consider not just the appeals within the text, but everything surrounding it. Who the author is, the purpose of the text, the audience, the setting. So songs, for example, you might think about who the artist or the band is. When did they release the song? Who is most likely to listen to their music? And then sort of where and when was the song released? So if you think about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, for example, the speech was given in 1963 in a very historic place at the foot of the Washington Monument. It was following a very historic march on Washington that it was sort of the culminating event of this big plea for racial equality. The people watching and listening to the speech were a mix of races and ages, probably primarily African American, but represented there were likely also people of other race and ethnicities. But when you think about setting, especially here, why give this speech at the foot of the Washington Monument and not in the middle of Nebraska in a cornfield? The answer is because that place itself is powerful. This is, halfway between the Washington Monument and the statue of Abraham Lincoln. This place has historical significance for us as Americans, for not only white Americans, but also for Black Americans. And it was not by chance that Martin Luther King chose to give his speech here. So these are the kind of things you think about when you're analyzing a text, not just the appeals within it, but everything happening around it. So let's look at an example. I chose this song, Same Love by Macklemore, which you may have heard, may not. I'm going to play just a little bit of it to give you a sense of the style of the song. And before you have sort of this gut reaction and opinion about the piece, I want you to take yourself out of that. Don't critique yet. What you want to do first is just listen and see if you can understand what the piece is trying to say. All right? So let's give it a listen, and we'll watch probably just a minute of it or so. The first probably minute or so is instrumental, so I'm going to skip ahead here. All right, so I'm going to pause here. If you are interested, the rest of the song is on YouTube. It's quite long, but has has a lot of other parts kind of this issue that it discusses. So partly why it's a good choice for an essay like this. So when you first choose a piece, what you want to do is just break it down into what the piece is actually trying to say. Like I said, you don't need to agree with the piece, all right? And disagreement, I think, has a place here. But you want to ask yourself, just what's it saying to me? So a few things that I might recommend. Take the lyrics or a transcript of whatever speech, poem, or song you've chosen and literally annotate it. Take notes in the margins, underline things that stick out to you, and then see if you can kind of label those appeals and how the artist is using them. So I did this with the first section of Same Love. So he starts the song by saying, when I was in the 3rd grade, I thought that I was gay because I could draw my uncle was and I kept my room straight. So this is kind of a mix of two appeals, but I think it's mostly ethos in that Macklemore is saying that he understands the sort of confusion surrounding what it means to be gay. And so he's saying, as an artist, he has experience with this and he's allowed to sing about it. He has an uncle who's gay, which establishes his credibility as someone to speak on this issue. And that's something you could discuss. If we see further down, he says a lot of discussion about religion is in this song, which would also be kind of a main point to discuss. But then he, down here, says, here we go, America the brave still fears what we don't know. This is definitely an emotional appeal. America the brave, if you guys think back to America the Beautiful, the land of the brave and the free, this is what, those ideas of American courage are very powerful. And he's saying that we call ourselves brave, but we're afraid of something different. That's very emotional. And then lastly, he says at the end of this stanza, we paraphrase a book written 3,500 years ago. This is probably a reference to the Bible. And he's saying logically, maybe we shouldn't be using something written that long ago as a basis for today. And that, though, isn't necessarily factual, it is sort of using the fact that the Bible is quite old. And he's saying that, maybe, reasonably, we shouldn't use it now. So before you feel yourself sort of giving an opinion about these ideas, I want you just to literally break down the words and just what are they saying to you? Think, too, about the situation surrounding your piece. Same Love, for example, was released in 2012, which was before gay marriage was federally legalized. And a lot of its persuasiveness is from that time. What you might ask yourself as well is, what made it persuasive then? And what parts of it are more persuasive now? I think that there are parts of the song that also talk about, it's not just about passing a law, but it's about encouraging sort of social acceptance. So that might be something you could bring into an analysis like this. But again, you don't have to agree with Macklemore's stance on this issue to be able to analyze it. The second half of the essay is about how it's persuasive to you. How can you connect the song or the piece to your personal experience? So the outline that you guys are going to do this week will really walk you through these steps, but analysis, once you get the hang of it, can actually be really cool. You do this kind of thinking and this kind of writing in other courses as well, so I find this to be a really useful exercise. Other ideas. Poems are great choices for analysis in an essay like this. So here's an example poem from an artist named Jason Reynolds, and he wrote this. It's untitled, but he, in this piece, discusses ideas of race, of America, of traveling, I think. So poems can be a little more ambiguous. They're not as clear-cut as songs can be. So if you are a fan of poetry or you want to pick like an inspirational speech, all of those are fair game for this assignment. Spring break is next week. So what I want you guys to do is finish strong this week, get those blog post comments in, your reading reflection, and this essay outline, and then give yourself a week off. All right? I will spend my spring break in St. Louis with my dog and my fiance, and hopefully not grading too much, but I really want to encourage you guys to take some time for yourself. You work hard, and you deserve a break. All right? So let me know if you have any questions this week. I apologize, this video is a little longer than usual, but I'll try and keep it shorter next time. So I will talk to you guys soon.